So glad to see you all. Before I introduce these lovely gentlemen here who've got probably more experience combined than me, I just want to get a feel of the room. How many of you have got HMOs in here? Wow. Who wants to set up an HMO? Oh, that's good. Have you got any, the guys that want to set up, have you got any properties now? Yes, you've got 1, 2, so you're into buy to let, just standard stuff, right? Okay, good. And who's from London? Everyone from London? Anyone outside of London? Okay, great. Right, so I will let you guys introduce yourselves, starting with Matt.
Thanks, Ash. Good morning, everybody. My name is Matt Baker. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Scott Baker Properties and the HMO platform. I have 3 hats. I am an investor myself. I develop next level HMOs, as I call them, and co-living spaces, so really top-notch, ensuite, really design-led properties across the country, operating in 4 different areas. And then I'm also a mentor and trainer. We run the HMO platform, which is one of the best places in the country to learn how to actually get HMOs off the ground and deliver great results for our clients. I also run a managing agency called CoHo, which specialises in co-living style of management of property, whereas we focus on the customer, the tenant as a customer rather than just looking after the house itself. And so that's me in a nutshell. And Vann.
Yeah, so I am Vann. Sorry.
No, go on.
I'm Vann. I'm the founder of CoHo, which is a property management system that quite originally focused on HMOs. It covers everything, but that's where my passion personally lies. I'm also, me and my team set up the HMO Awards, which is the main awards in the HMO industry. Where my speciality is I know very little when it comes to property development and that side of things, but I kind of am looking at where HMOs are going and effective management of HMOs, kind of from the perspective of really pushing the industry forward and making it the prominent way that people choose to live in future.
Thanks, Vann.
I'm Cameron Devady. I'm foremost a property investor developer. That's what we actually do on a day-to-day basis. I'm a founder of Premier Property Group. You may or may not have read my book. I'm an author of Boost Your Pension and Income. And over the last decade, one of our companies is Premier Property Education. I've trained over 200,000 people to help them create financial freedom as my part-time business. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. By the way, I started with nothing. I fell into HMOs back in 1989. That was my first HMO, accidental landlord. I won't go into the whole long story. Just goes to show that no matter who you are, you can make this work.
Thanks, Cam. My name's Ash Berry, CEO and director of a company called Easy Living Property and Easy Living Property Investments. We've been specialising in HMOs since 2008. We've got about 70 developments of HMOs ranging from 4 beds to 21 beds over those years. Currently manage 260 tenants. I love that. And if you don't love it, you can ask me, all the nightmare stories and I'll tell you about it. I also am the founder of the HMO group. Who's a member of the HMO group? Anyone? Okay. Who's
on Facebook?
Is anyone on Facebook who use social media? You should get on there because there's a lot of free information on that group. We have 50,000 members, or just nearly 50,000 members. And if you went in there and used the search engine and you just typed, "Are HMOs good?" you'd get 100 different answers from different people from all over the country and the world. So that's what I do. And today we are going to be talking about transitioning from buy-to-let, single buy-to-lets to HMOs. That's the topic of the day, but I've got a couple of questions that I want to ask the panel and we'll share with you. And then if you want to come in, feel free to ask your questions. Don't be shy, okay? We're here. There's a lot of knowledge base here from different sectors of the industry. So, if you've got a burning question, just go in. Right, so the first one is, what are the key regulatory differences between single lets and HMOs, and how do they impact property management and operations? Right? Everyone understand that? Yeah?
Very exciting question.
It's the best one.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Okay. What are the key regulatory differences between single lets and HMOs? That's probably the different
The key regulatory, I mean, there's a few parts of the puzzle you need to be aware of. There's different legislations you've got to be aware of. And I think the three key pots of information you need to be aware of are licensing, planning, and building regulations. Would anyone add anything to that? It's probably about not you.
I'd say,
Not one for me, yeah.
just to amplify that, I might say Article 4 as well.
Yeah, so I put that within.
Because people confuse that sometimes, don't they?
They do, and I think that's the difference between planning and licensing. That's probably the best place to start. So one of the biggest kind of mistakes I see people making or misconceptions is that if you've got a license, you can operate an HMO in an Article 4 area. It's complete nonsense. There's a very clear dividing line between legislation where you've got a planning permission for a property and a license for a property. They are separate. Councils are now starting to talk to each other a lot more, so licensing and planning departments are conversing, which is really annoying because it does prevent certain strategies of getting planning and along the way. But essentially, what we need to understand is that an HMO is a different use class in planning terms to a house. A normal dwelling house would be C3, an HMO, small HMO between 3 and 6 unrelated people would be C4. That change from C3 to C4 is normally permitted development across the country unless, as Cam said, there's an Article 4 in place, which would mean that there's a hurdle to overcome, which means you need to get planning. It doesn't mean it's impossible to do, and I love working in Article 4 areas because you get massive uplift and there's huge demand for your room. So they're really good future-proof properties, but you've got to know what you're doing in order to get planning. Maybe we'll go into that a bit later. Licensing, on the other hand, is you speak to the council, they have their licensing criteria, and to be fair, if you do a good quality HMO, you generally get your license because you should be going above and beyond what you need to do for mandatory licensing. And I'll let you guys come in.
Yeah, so
Like you go for hours on it, but yeah.
thank you. A lot of information there.
Yeah.
Really good.
What if you could answer that as well, and then just add how does it impact property management and operations as well, and maybe you can add some bit there as well.
See, the thing is, a lot of people get confused about licensing and Article 4. So let's clarify that first. The key number is 4. So what it is, it's about 4 tenants. So after 4 tenants, what happens in an area that is not Article 4, you will need to potentially get licensed. It is borough-wide. It does depend on your council. So let's clarify the Article 4 licensing part. Are you with me so far, team? Yeah, you can join in, by the way.
Yeah. Everyone know what Article 4 is?
So Article 4, in a nutshell, you need a planning proposal for that. So what we focus on at Premier is HMOs which are ideally in non-Article 4 areas. Now, many areas are becoming Article 4, but you'll be able to know that 12 to 24 months before they become Article 4. And what do you think happens to the supply of HMOs once they become Article 4, do you think, in that area? That's a question for you. Of course, yeah, you're absolutely 100% right. I think it's going to increase in value. So you have this way of adding value right at the beginning. So we focus on the low-hanging fruit, I call it, the areas where there is no Article 4. Now, in that area, if you've got up to 4 tenants, which typically ends up being 4 rooms, one of our favorite strategies, we buy typically 10 to 15 of these around 4 to 6 weeks on an ongoing basis, but you'd expect that, wouldn't you, if someone's training you on it. So with those, there is no licensing, and it's not an Article 4 area. Where you've got an Article 4 area, it doesn't matter. If there are more than 2 unrelated people, then that needs a license. Now, the license isn't the end of the world, by the way. From my perspective, the license is a prudent approach on what you should be doing correctly where you've got more than 2 people. And it is form filling. And yes, it will take you typically an hour to a couple of hours to fill that form in. Many of these are online, which can be a bit of a bane to your life kind of thing, because you've got to deal with it online. Some of them, some councils require it to be posted. But my point is the license you can get. You pay some money, typically £550, and you'll get the license. So it's important that you distinguish between the Article 4 and the licensing. So I hope this is helping. In terms of management regulations, so key parts that you do need are fire doors. Typically 60-minute check fire doors. What we're noticing right now is in some of the boroughs, for example, one of our areas is Hull. In Hull, they're bringing in this policy where you've got to get your fire door approved. Now, very interesting that, because no one really knows how to approve a fire door.
Light it on fire.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Look
so
for-
that's actually being, and this is what Hull have brought in. Yeah. So they're one of the councils that brought this in. So you've got to do things like that. So fire doors are important. Also, you need smoke alarms in each of your bedrooms. You also need a heat detector in the kitchen. In the windows, you need if it's a 2-story, you will require a fire escape window, at least one, on a first floor. The thinking behind that is, from the fire regulations, is that if someone falls out the window and breaks their leg, it's better to do that rather than get burnt alive. So they're okay with one fire escape window. Also, be aware that you need restrictors there as well for other windows if you've got windows that are opening up. And there's some of the regulations for what we call an under-the-radar HMO. We have 5 models. That's one of the models I've shared with you. And the regulations change. One more thing, if I may say, to add in, is that in some cases, depending on the configuration of the actual asset, sometimes you don't need to do any of that. Not a lot of people know that, actually. So they end up spending, a good £20,000-30,000 extra on their property when they actually didn't need to do it anyway, because in that niche area, in that council, because of the configuration of the property with the stairwells, etc., they will allow you to do these things without the fire doors and without the HMO regs. That's quite interesting, that, isn't it? So it's all about really upskilling and knowing your niche, knowing what you're doing, because not spending more money than you need to, spending money where you do need to, and just getting that clarity. So some regs.
Yeah, good. Vann?
Yeah, I think one of the things I'd add about non-Article 4 areas is you kind of have to look ahead for when it becomes an Article 4 area. You definitely, as Cam said, you get an uplift in value. But also, as soon as there is knowledge that it's going to become an Article 4 area, what may have roughly had balanced supply and demand, you will quickly get an influx of supply as landlords attempt to get a property there quite quickly before the licensing comes in. So I think you get grandfathered into the Article 4 stuff. So something that may make sense from your rooms are filled occupancy perspective, you could then have a period of 6 to 12 months where the supply far outweighs the demand, and you're kind of hoping that some people will swap away from HMO because of that. So it's just something to, I'd say, one thing to be aware of it, but you do get that uplift, so it swings and roundabouts. From a management perspective, all I'll probably say right now is there is a significant difference between managing a single let and an HMO, and it shouldn't be considered the same thing in any way. And I think those who go down the HMO route with the mentality of it being a single let with more people are the ones that will be in Ash's group saying HMOs don't work, this is horrible, what do I do? And actually, if you go in with the right mentality and the right understanding of what you're doing, it's significantly more profitable. It's probably a lot more enjoyable, and it's something that you can get a lot more passionate about because it's more like a hybrid between serviced accommodation and single let is what you land on.
Do you want to add anything? Or are you
I was just going to say, what I love about HMOs is that, just comparing to service accommodation there, is that it's generally people's home. So if you know what you're doing, you do it right, you're renting to the right types of tenants, people generally look after it as if it's their home. So we have very few issues, and that's one of the misconceptions that I think people think about HMOs is that there's lots of management challenges because you've got multiple people living in one house, and especially when I speak to, because similar to Cam, I started off with about 40 grand's worth of debt before I got into property, and I had to use investors the entire time. And I speak to my investors, a lot of them are older generations, and they say, I can't get my head around this HMO model. Why would people want to share property? Because they came from a generation where it was much easier to buy a house, much easier to have your own accommodation. Now it's the necessity for a lot of people, and our demographic is young professionals, with housing between 21-year-old and 35-year-olds, and that the kind of average tenant living in good quality HMOs is kind of now around the 28, 29-year-old mark. So people are living this type of accommodation for a long period of time, but they're calling it their home, which again is like a buy-to-let, but it's also affordable. So I think if you're thinking that HMOs are difficult and that there's going to be something which is it's going to cause you more problems than it's worth, I would say as long as you're doing it the right way, don't worry about that. Get the right support behind you, the right network, And there are lots of different networks that you can explore here at the Property Investor Show today. Find something that fits, that works, and then just use that and implement it, and then you'll be flying.
What I like about HMOs isn't actually the HMOs. What I like about them is they actually create income and cash. That's what I like about them.
Yeah.
Gone are the days, trust me, I've made lots of mistakes in the past, and I used to be a social worker for my tenants. I used to be the person where someone's eating a half-eaten sandwich and they're complaining about the fridge. The fridge becomes a problem in HMO. Yeah. And you are going to get challenges in HMOs. Don't kid yourselves. Yes, team? But what I've decided to do is transition from just being a self-employed person with a good paid job to actually becoming a business owner. I do not manage my HMOs because the reason I have these is to create a better lifestyle, to create extra income. Yeah, if you're following what I'm saying. So what we do is we will leverage just about everything. And I know Ash has got we have views
we have
on
a
this.
fundamental difference here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, right? So I do not want to self-manage those HMOs. I want to delegate that to somebody else. I want to see the money coming in because that's why I've got into HMOs. Yeah. What I love about HMOs is that you can actually build your goals and your lifestyle towards HMOs income coming in. So for example, if you want your child's education to be a private education, you know the government's now taking away that 20% as well that they were giving for child's education. If you want to have a private education, my kids went to comprehensive, but I'm just saying, if you wanted that, well, you know what? 2 HMOs of under the radar type will actually do that for you, where 2 in a year will pay for the whole school fees. If you do want to give up your job, I don't suggest that you do, because you might even enjoy your job. But if you did, you can actually work out your income. And to be fair, most people can, anywhere between 3 to around 6 HMOs covers all of their income. I get my holidays from HMO income. So we have typically 5 or 6 very good holidays a year. Those types of holidays where, you pick up the napkin everyone's always smiling. I don't know why they're always smiling. It's lovely, isn't it? And those holidays come from income from HMO. And I'm not shy to say that, because that's why we're doing it, isn't it? So you get my point. So whatever it is, whatever your cars, your toys, your income is from HMOs. That's what I love about it. And I would suggest that you leverage everything you possibly can. You are the business owner. You're the entrepreneur controlling your business. Let everybody else do the work for you.
Great.
Can I just jump in there?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so in terms of the management, I think it's the arguably the right thing to do. They have to be managed correctly, and if you don't have the capacity to do that yourself, find someone who does. But that very likely isn't the high street letting agent. That is someone who really understands HMOs. Yeah. And that could be knowledge you get yourself as well. But I think one thing to recognise is HMOs is still quite a young industry compared to normal buy-to-lets, and that it's evolving quite quickly as well. It originally was kind of the lowest
Wild West, as I say.
Wild West, with the lowest income people trying to find a way of getting a house. Yeah. And I think where it's moving to now is it's not just out of necessity, the quality's raising, and an HMO that worked, one that I lived in sort of 12 years ago, probably doesn't work anymore. No. It has to be very significantly changed. And I think if, as Matt says, stay in the top percentage, because that is constantly rising, and the higher you are in that percentage, the longer the property stays relevant without significant changes. Great.
So in summary on that first question, single lets are easy. HMOs need a little bit of education, a little bit of research, a little bit of knowledge, a lot of networking. If you get that right, then you can get the model right, and then you've got to decide whether you want to manage it or pass it on to someone who's a specialist. I believe you had a question on that.
Can I be cheeky and ask 2 questions?
Go on then.
Right. You're talking about high-end HMOs. What worries me is that, are your tenants going to be quite fussy and picky and complain about trivial things? And what you were talking about is what I want to know is about are managing agents. How many managing agents know about each?
I didn't catch your name. Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Oh, sorry, I'm Sarah.
Sarah. So excellent question, by the way. On the management side, then. So you're quite right. You're not going to find the mistake that many investors make is they get the regular letting agent to manage the HMOs. Now, some of the letting agents will be completely honest and say they don't manage HMOs. Others will have a go, have a try. And you don't want to be the guinea pig. So what we find is, what I love about our country is that we have a cookie cutter system, which I don't know why seems to work across the country. So you will find typically in a town at least 1 to 2 very good letting agents that will manage your properties for you for HMOs. And here's some criteria that we look for. So first of all, we always go for full management. A good letting agent that's renting for HMOs, they will be really commanding 10 to 15%, and you hear me right, 10 to 15% of that rental as a management fee. So we always go for full management. They will be doing more work, the ones that are doing it properly. So look for that. If someone is too cheap, be concerned. Why are they so cheap? They're either having a try with your property or they're not really into HMOs properly, because you need a team around that. Secondly, when you're looking for your managing agent, the question that you want to ask them, ask many questions under the radar. They sound flippant, but they're very, 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 very detailed. So one of the questions I ask them is, how exciting is this project for you that I'm bringing to you? And what you want to hear isn't that, oh, this is really exciting. What you want to hear is, oh yeah, it's just a regular kind of thing. It's another one of our properties that we've already got stock of. That's what you want to hear. So these are questions that you can ask your letting agents. They won't even know why you're asking these questions. So in this way, you know you've got a good letting agent. Another question you can ask is, over 60% of your business, what would you say 60% plus of your business is? Is it managing HMOs? Is it managing buy-to-lets? And what you want to hear, of course, is that more of their business is lean towards managing HMOs. Also, what I find is the best letting agents, managing agents, tend to be the ones that are people like us, owner-occupiers. They've got the information, they've come through the ranks, learning the hard way, and they're a wealth of experience. So you can typically find 1 or 2 of these, and they tend to be independent letting agents. So you can go online and you can find out where the single offices are. So look for letting agents with owner-occupied offices, usually 1 or 2. They're not going to be through the region, they're not going to be through the country. They tend to be the best. So that's some answers. I hope that helps with the managing side of things.
Just to add there, the HMO Awards has a category for best agents, so that's the people that are absolutely top notch. But
you still do that regionally as well?
Yeah. But feel free to send me a message at some point, and I'll put you in touch with whoever, because I know most of the agents around the country.
And then talking about the kind of higher end of the market, are they fussy? Yes, you can get the odd people that say, oh, I'm paying this amount of money, it should be all inclusive, sort this out for me. And the way that we deal with that is by educating them on move in. So for example, we use systems that mean that they self-serve maintenance. So we try to avoid sending out maintenance people because that's an extra expense to the landlord. So, and it's actually a great service. So we actually use Vann's system, CoHo, and they've got an integration with Help Me Fix. And Help Me Fix allows the tenant to have a video engineer with someone that can help fix their problem right there, right then. And about 70% of problems can be fixed over the phone. And they just say, "Go, show me the boiler. What's wrong with it? Oh, just push that button. Job done." Yeah. And then if there's an issue, then they can report it to the managing agent or the landlord. I don't know if anyone else uses that process, but that works really nicely for us because it saves us money and it saves the landlords that we manage money as well. And it's about educating the tenant to say, you know what, you don't need someone to come out to you because it might take a day or 2 for someone to come look at it and realise there's a problem, and they can fix it, and then they have to go away and then get the parts and then come back. Whereas if within a matter of seconds they can speak to someone, triage the problem, and then it could be solved the same day or next day, that to me is exemplary service. So you don't want tenants complaining about that. And you know what, if you create an environment, so we love the word co-living, try to encourage community, and we do what we call the nudge effect to get our tenants to speak to each other, to get on, so that they can start to resolve issues amongst themselves. So the last thing we want to be is an agony aunt or uncle. I've been there and done that. I've self-managed in the past. Me and my mum, we've got a couple of properties together, and got and sat down between 2 guys that have literally had fisticuffs in the house before, and tried to sort them out. Not doing that anymore. That was like 8 years ago. So what we do is we encourage the people to get on and to use these nudge effects, like setting up events or move-in parties and things like that, which cost us very little to do, but encourage those people to speak to each other and form meaningful relationships so that they solve issues amongst themselves. And when we're doing management the way that we like to do it, We focus on that community element whereby we have a community manager, not a letting agent. So they speak to the people about how they're getting on and are in touch with them a lot more regularly than maybe a normal letting agent might be.
Great, thank you.
Very, very useful.
Yeah, very. No. I've got to move to the next question.
Oh, there's
so much to go.
Yeah.
But thank you guys. Really appreciate it. I'm sure you're going to answer the next one, which leads kind of interestingly to what we're already talking about, because there's no point setting up high-end HMOs in every area because they won't work. So then your financial outlay and your tenant profile for that will be different because some areas might want a different kind of strategy, right? So you might have HMOs in some areas where it'll be only people on housing benefit, or you'll only have blue collar workers, or in another area you're going to have these top end guys that are coming in and out. So the second question leads to, can you share your experiences with financial planning and investment strategies when transitioning from single lets to HMOs?
How many hours we got?
Quick. So basically, what are the financial differences? Yeah?
That's a subject.
Go on.
What do you want?
You go ahead.
Oh, so financing. So finance is readily available for HMOs. There's a number of ways of financing. Now, I can't give you financial advice. I'm sharing this with you as we do this on a daily basis. So let's start with one of the finances. So many people will go into a HMO finance, not realizing you can actually get a buy-to-let to actually finance a HMO. Yes. So if you say to a financier that you've got 4 tenants and it's a property, it's a HMO, they'll go ahead and you get a HMO mortgage. Typically, you pay 1.5%, typically more than a buy-to-let mortgage. Your arrangement fees will be higher, the scrutiny will be higher as well. Whereas if you say to your mortgage broker, I want a lender who is a buy-to-let lender who will allow me to multi-let up to 4 tenants, you can get a buy-to-let mortgage, which means you save all that money that I just discussed. What is the difference between multi-let and a HMO in terms of finance? In terms of the technical side? Well, it's actually the same thing, isn't it? They're both HMOs. Do you agree, team? Yeah, whether you multi-let it, it's going to be more than 2 people, unrelated, potentially, yes? And if it's a HMO, it's also going to be 2 or more unrelated people. Yes, no? This is a question to you guys. It's the same thing, right? However, when it comes to finance, if you say it's a HMO, you will pay more. If you say it's a buy-to-let on a multi-let agreement, on a multi-let tenancy, you will get buy-to-let rates. I can see some of your faces getting quite excited as it's dropping in. So you save a lot of money by doing things like this. So there are specific products. I shouldn't really name them, should I?
No.
No, I won't really name them, but there are specific products. Come and speak to me downstairs. I'll share them with you in terms of what we're doing. No financial advice. So that's really good. Also, when you're getting HMOs, which are in Article 4, be very careful. The lenders will have certain requirements. So here's an example of a current scenario with one of the lenders. So this is the HMO we're buying in an Article 4 area. And it's been running as a HMO. It's got the license. We've now applied for the new license because you've got to apply for a new license. Everything is there. Everything is fine. It was there as a property before Article 4. Yeah? All great.
Yep.
Yeah? Hunky-dory, lovely. We got the mortgage offer, probably the fastest mortgage offer we ever got. In around 3 weeks, the mortgage offer arrives. I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty good. And then what happens is the legal side for the financiers get involved. So if you have a limited company, you will find typically for your finance, there will be a set of conveyancing solicitors that act for the lender, who you have no control over. It really is potluck with those people. You have your conveyancer, but you have the lenders will have their conveyancer. There'll be a panel. To be fair, they're much the same. I've tested them, most of them, and they're much the same. So whoever you get. So we got this conveyancing solicitor who now wants planning permission for this HMO. And we aim to speak, we try to speak sense to them, saying, look, it's already a HMO, all the stuff I just said. But he wants planning permission. How the heck are you supposed to get planning permission for a HMO that's already there within the time frame of a mortgage offer? Yeah. So be aware of these things. Yeah. So what I would suggest is if you're going into Article 4 areas and you've got HMOs and you're getting finance, always get retrospective planning, also known as the fact that the planning is already there. So your forgetting the words now.
Certificate of lawfulness.
The certificate of lawful use or certificate of lawfulness. That's what you want to be asking for, and that's a planning process. Costs you about £500. Get that ready before you apply for the finance. It's a nice belts and braces way of doing things. You should have that really anyway for your belts and braces, like what I say, and that will help your finance work. One more, sui generis. So sui generis HMOs, we're doing more of this year. So these are when you're typically into 7 tenants, which ends up typically being 7 beds.
Do you want to ask
Now,
them if they know what's
so sui generis is where you need planning. It's so sui generis, SUI generis. It's a use class order of a type of property.
fancy name?
Fancy name, use class order. It's a label.
It's
a label for the property.
It's a Latin phrase which means in a class of its own.
In a class of its own.
Yeah.
So with sui generis, with seven tenants, these you can get investment valuations on. The other types of HMOs you typically won't get investment valuations. In my experience, it will be bricks and mortar valuations. That's a myth that you're going to get a valuation on that in that way. However, when you're looking at sui generis, you do get an investment valuation. So just for clarity, what that means is the value is worked out on the rental. So typically, if you're in the right areas, and that is really important, by the way, London ain't just it. There's the rest of the country. The 3 areas that we invest in with HMOs, they are all outside of London, and they work really well. So with sui generis, you get the income. You get the income increase.
Yeah. Which area?
Do you want to- So with North East, we also invest in North West as well, around Liverpool, and also in Kent. But the northern areas work better. By the way, that's over 30 years. You don't need 3 areas, just pick one. So sui generis work, and you'll get all your money back out of your return. Your return on your capital employed ends up being infinite, and that's the way we work at Premier. The money that you put in, you're going to be able to pull that back out, so you can do more with your capital, not the loan. And that's our ethos. That's how we do everything. So these investment valuations actually allow you to do that. I do get a bit excited about it.
Yeah, that's all right. Thanks, Cam. And
I also get very excited about investment valuations. It's our bread and butter. It's what we do a lot of because the planning uplift is huge. So just to give you an example, one of the ones. So we won an award 2022, the Property Investors Awards, for the best co-living deal of the year. And that deal we purchased for 240. It's in Portsmouth. There's Article 4 in place. We went 7 beds. We went from a C3 dwelling house to a 7-bed sui generis. So it required full planning permission. Because we know the rule. And the thing about planning permission is it's a rules-based system. So you need to know what the rules are. And then if you apply to the rules and you can pass the test, then they can't refuse you. And so this is what we do. We went and bought it. We didn't have planning in place, but we knew that we could pass the test. So we did, and it sailed through planning. It was over COVID, so it took a bit of time to come through, but we were then able to get the 7-bed HMO, bought it for 240. We made it really nice, top end, all en suite, spent £220,000 on it, and then we sold it at its investment valuation of 630, which was a new high for the area. It's a 9% gross yield in Portsmouth. So that works very, very nicely. That's now set a comparable. So for every other property that we do, and I've had a lot of people say thank you for selling that property in Portsmouth because it's being used to help value up investment valuations. So one of the other things that people say about the difference between bricks and mortar values, which if you're doing a 4-bed, 5-bed HMO, non-Article 4 area, you're going to get bricks and mortar. If you've got planning permission, say 6 beds in an Article 4 will generally get a commercial valuation, 7 beds and above, anywhere else will get a commercial valuation or investment valuation. They work very nicely. Because HMOs don't transact very often, we always try and sell one to set a comparable. They're generally to overseas investors or ultra high net worth individuals who want as hands off an HMO as possible, and then that means we can refinance them as much as we can. So we look to make £100,000 to £200,000 profit and uplift in each HMO that we do, as well as getting the cash flow at the same time. So we can recycle that cash on the ones that we then hold.
great.
Useful info.
Yeah, very.
I don't sell HMOs. We like to keep them because why would you sell the goose that's laying the golden egg? And Matt's absolutely right. That's a model.
As much money as possible.
Really good model. So I used to be a sourcer. I've trained so many sourcers how to source. But what I realised is those people that helped make become so wealthy, it was good that we got some money. But what I realised is how the values increase over a period of time, as you've all realised. So why the heck would you want to get into HMO, do all the effort, and then sell it off? So just a different view.
Well, to be fair, we would, for example, do 10 and sell 2 or 3.
That can work, absolutely.
Yeah.
I used to do that as well.
Yeah.
Because we're here to share different views, right?
Yeah.
So my view on that one is I like to hold them because what we work on is the return on capital employed coming back. with the sui generis, one more thing that might be useful if you guys are interested in sui generis is what we find is that when we're looking at residentials that are 4 or 5 bedrooms and you want to turn it into a 7-bedroom, that becomes a little bit more difficult. So if you have a 6-bedroom that you buy, the planning process seems to be easier for some reason to actually turn it into a 7. I don't know if you find that as well. And also what we find is that the planning department are much more, can I say, on your side, if you're actually looking at commercial properties that you're now converting. What we've got to remember is we're discussing HMOs here, but HMOs isn't everything. We do a number of different strategies, and we look at the stock and we see how we can use that stock to build in all of these strategies within that one stock, if I'm explaining that right. So there's some PD and development scenarios which also roll into HMOs. I don't know if you've done any of that or you do some of that as well.
So commercial, I've done about 4 or 5 commercial conversions to HMO and also mixed use. So mixed use properties are also brilliant in town centres. But I think if people are transitioning from buy-to-lets to HMOs, I think the moral of the story here is keep it simple. For the first one, say doing a 4, 5, 6 bed non-Article 4 area style property for that first transition, because there is, as you can hear, there's a lot of moving parts doing HMOs. So don't try and do all the moving parts at once. Learn about your licensing, then do a planning gain. Then you'll know that, then you can work on the ones that work for your strategy to bring your income. Because each they have their upsides and their downsides. They're the low-hanging fruit, as you said, probably lower returns, more cash left in. It's a cash flow strategy. How can and where's that cash coming from? We work with investors, so we need to recycle as much money as possible, so we get as much uplift and pull that cash out. As I said, sell one a year to then recycle and to recoup that equity as well. So it works very nicely, but take a measured approach. Do something simple first, then learn on the job.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it rule of thumb then that you have to have 7 beds to get an investment valuation? Or is there a scenario? I think you said that the scenario where it could be for a 6.
Yes, so the key with commercial valuations is that there must have been some hurdle to get there. So there are 2 types of commercial valuations that you want to be aware of. There's the full-on investment valuation, and then there's what's called a hybrid valuation.
Yeah.
Now, just focusing on that, the full-on investment valuation, where the house is seen as a commercial asset because of the turnover, and it's unlikely to be sold as anything else apart from an investment asset, that would always get a commercial valuation. So a 7-bed property and above has to go through planning in order to turn into a large HMO. Therefore, it's different to the other houses on the street. If we're in Article 4, it requires planning to be an HMO. So whether it's got grandfather rights, that is the planning permission. And I would agree with Cam, never buy an HMO in an Article 4 area without a certificate of lawfulness. Always be offering subject to that, because that HMO doesn't have its value unless it has that piece of paper, because you can't get finance on it. And if you ever want to, even if you're buying it cash and you want to sell it on in future, that person might want to get finance on it. So always have that piece of paper.
What is the certificate?
Sorry?
What is the certificate?
A certificate of lawful use. So it means that you put your evidence together to show that it has been an HMO. If it's somewhere like Portsmouth or Manchester, you need 10 years worth of evidence.
Yep.
It's a lot. And the burden is on the property owner to have that information and to prove that it is an HMO rather than the council to disprove. So by going through that process, you might even lose. You're at risk of losing the HMO use as well. So you've got to make sure you have a good team putting that through for you, and you know what you're buying.
Makes sense. It does vary as well, doesn't it, sometimes? So sometimes it can be 4 years, depending on the area. So it's very sort of area dependent, council dependent as well.
Okay. Thank you, guys. So just 1 second, just to summarise on that. Single lets, not as much money. HMOs, lots of money. You need to really figure out what your strategy or your financial situation is, because if you've got limited cash, you need to make sure that cash is able to recycle. Does that make sense? So if you've only got £100,000 and you want to get 5 HMOs, you want to make sure that the first HMO you buy, you're able to pull a substantial money out. Does that make sense? You're going to get those with the commercial valuations and the sui generis. Otherwise, if you don't do that, your 100 grand is going to go into that HMO and it's going to stay there. Maybe that's all right for you because you only want 1, right? Does that make sense? Right. Okay.
Could I just add to that?
Yeah, go on.
So also your first one, it might be to prove the model. So what a lot of our clients do is they do their first one, prove the model, they get cash flow, £1,000 to £2,000 a month coming through. They might have 80k of their money left in, but they've proven they can do it. Then they go out to investors and start forming joint venture partnerships, using angel finance, and then they scale up and do 2, 3, 4, 5 projects that way.
So that is so true. I've got a number of students, for example, where at the beginning it's like, oh, can I really do this? And they're a little bit overwhelmed, to be fair, and then they jump in, and then like 9-10 months later, Ramesh, for example, right?
Done that a few times.
10 months in, month 10, he bought 1. Month 11, month 13, he's got 9 projects going on right now. So look, when you get into this, the momentum increases. It's pretty good. My suggestion, if you're jumping into this and you're a little bit fearful or so, I mean, everybody's can be like that, right? I was really scared when I jumped into this. Why not go for an easy entry level? And the easy entry level are 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom houses, and one of my favorite models, by the way, because you can scale it. 2, 3-bedroom houses where you take a lounge and you turn the lounge into a room. As long as it's in the right area and you have the right clientele, specific niches, you will find that you will make a good amount of income from that. So in the northern areas, as I call it, north of Watford, we typically make around £6,000 from a property that we purchased for around £80,000. £6,000 net. Now, if you look at the ratio, that's a very good ratio. One of the mistakes that people make is they look for a beautiful looking property, overspend on it, and then they are mentioning that they're making £2,000 on it. What they don't mention is the £350,000 of capital expenditure that they pumped into that property in the first place, where they could have bought 3 or 4 other properties that would allow them to create much more income. Hope I'm making some sense here. So there are ways that you can jump into this in a much faster way as well.
And actually, because we're comparing buy-to-lets and HMOs, that kind of mini-mo route 3 and 4 bed HMOs, that about 3 years ago, I'd have said it's a waste of time because you can do buy-to-lets and get the same amount of money. Now, you can't because the mortgages are so high. So getting a £500 a month profit from a house that you can buy for £80,000, that is a very smart thing to do, because actually you're hitting that £400 or £500 a month profit that was the profit of old if you're buying single let buy-to-let properties today.
I just want to add in there the idea of taking a property, getting rid of the lounge to make it a living room, to make it profitable. It works, but I would always look at where it's going to go in the future as well, because as the HMO tenant is changing, a lot of people don't just want to live the whole time in their bedroom, so you're going to end up with very short tenancies. As the market rises, that property may no longer be one of the middle HMOs and may slowly drop, which could then find yourself struggling with occupancy and struggling to get the rents that other people are achieving. So I think all of these need to be looked at from a future perspective as well. Like, it can work this year, maybe it works next year, and just keep looking forward.
That's so true. So just to clarify the lounge area, so typically in a 2-bedroom mid-terraced house or a 3-bedroom mid-terraced house, you'll have 2 rooms at the bottom, right? That's so important what Vann said there. It's really important that you maintain one of the lounge rooms. Some people, what they do is they convert everything into a bedroom. Really important you keep that, because in my humble experience, what you find is when a lender comes along, when the valuer comes along, they won't give you the finance if there isn't a lounge area. And also think about your competition, right? So why would someone move into a HMO where there isn't a lounge area? Quite right. Whereas you haven't got one. So it's really important that you maintain one room as an area, communal area, and then if you've got another room, that you convert into that. So yeah.
Awesome. Some questions. Let's start with you.
I've got into property relatively late in life, so I'm sort of like, do I go into an HMO or not? But I'm looking at one, I think, in your neck of the woods at the moment. It's currently an HMO and it's been sold. But I just wondered what a high-end HMO looks like, say for 6 people. Do they all have en suites? Do they?
So is that the question? Yeah.
Does it have a huge kitchen? Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, what does a high-end HMO look like?
So high-end
Let me start.
I was going to say, I think we touched on it. Every area has got a different spectrum of demographics, and when we're kind of working with our clients, we have this methodology from my book, which is about tenant first method, and it's about identifying who your ideal client is, and then building what they need. So if you're in an area like Manchester, Brighton, Portsmouth, they've got high taste, they want good quality. In that area, in that instance, you would want every room to have an ensuite. We go for 10 square metre rooms and above, so it rules out a lot of the smaller properties that you might do for like mini-mos. So it enables us to make sure that the tenant's going to move in, love where they live and stay, and then pay a premium. So that works really well. Now, there are and then we would also invest quite a bit into interior design. So we'd spend between £5,000 and £10,000 on making sure that there was a good design package, that it looks great, and so that we're not looking at, say, redoing the property every 5 years, every 10 years. A long-lasting design which attracts them, it looks great in the photos, and that would be the high end that you could get. In terms of living space, communal space, there are different rules with licensing. So, for example, if all bedrooms are deemed to be a living bedroom, so over 10 square metres, you don't actually need a separate lounge, but it means you can create a what they call the kitchen diner, which could also have living space in it. So we generally do a large one of those and zone it. So you have your kitchen space, your dining area, and then a seating area as well. We would also look at doing outside space, so potentially an outhouse that's got extra working space, or like a bar area, very cost effective to do, and then just decking outside. So you've got the inside space and the outside space as well. That would be like top notch for an area that demands it. There are other areas where I'd be saying, well, do you know what, you can probably get away with one bathroom between two. I don't go below that for anything that we do, because bathroom and sharing bathrooms is where you get a lot of tenant strife. If you've got two people sharing one bathroom, at least you know the other person made the mess, right? No one can hold their hands up and go, it wasn't me. So there's a bit of accountability for that space. So you could do that, and again, get you to go to the nth degree with design, and say other areas. Trying to think without disparaging any area really, but if I was doing HMOs in Burnley, I wouldn't be going next level, because the market's not there, and also the property type is also not there to do the types of things that we would do. So mini-mos can work, also buy-to-lets can still work up there as well. But
so you were saying that it's hard to get lending if it hasn't got a lounge. The large kitchen diner was count as a lounge.
It has a license.
If it's big enough, yeah.
As long as you can get the license, it's normally okay. But when the types of lenders that we work with a lot are less fussy on that stuff. When you start to get to more first tier lenders, like for example, if you went to Barclays Bank and tried to get an HMO mortgage, they're going to go everything to the nth degree. Whereas the more commercial you are with your lender, because there are different tiers of lenders that you'd work with, the more you go down that list, slightly more you pay, but the more flexible they are as well.
I'd actually say that kitchen diner is probably the more preferable way from a usability perspective. It takes up less space, but also you're going to get more interaction in the kitchen. And if the lounge is somewhere else, it's probably not going to get used. And that's when you get people say, I put a lounge, no one's ever in it, it's a waste of space. It has to all flow well, and there's people here today that's really great with that idea of design. And my view of design is it's not just the Instagrammable pictures, because currently you'll get most of your tenants from one source that doesn't show that off. It's about good use of the space and how tenants are going to use that space.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can also overspec your properties as well. So we've got to be aware of what high end means for actually the tenant. So we've got specific tenant profiles. So for example, one of our tenant profiles is students. So for students, we go above and beyond what is available in the area, and we'll spec it according to them. Now, that's high end for them, but it wouldn't be high end something that you and I might think it is, what a professional might think it is. So it's a high end for them. So we make beautiful properties. Really, it's a medium range. What we always focus on is your return on your capital that you're employing, because this is a business. That's what you're doing, aren't you? You know, that's really what it is. And yes, you get a lot of pride from what you create, and people like living there because when they go in, they go, wow, that's an amazing feeling. But it doesn't always have to be an overspend on what you're actually doing. You really got to keep a tight rein on your capital expenditure, and it's depending on your tenant profile. So what we do for our students is different what we do for our NHS workers, another niche, yeah, which is different to what we do for our sort of semi-management, working class people, C1, social group type of people. So they like en suites, for example, because they want their own little private space. They don't really want to interact with the other people. They're polite and reasonable people. They work, they come home, and they just want somewhere where they got their own space, their own en suite, that type of thing. So it really depends on that clientele, on what end you go, and really focus on that return on your capital employed. That is so important. Can't emphasize that enough.
Great. Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is there like an average time that especially on the professional side, tenant stays in that HMO?
Good question. So the question is, how long does a tenant stay on average in an HMO?
Ash, what would you say for your ones?
6 to 12 months. That's the minimum. Minimum is 6. We try and push them for 12. Some do. Some even do 24, which is nuts. But that's the way the market is, and that's the minimum.
Do you see that getting longer with the way the housing market?
The evidence is that it is getting longer.
Yeah. I mean, our average tenancies are 3 years.
I was going to say, when the people actually staying are, we've got people who've been in there 5 years now.
Yeah.
So we would be looking to maybe adapt these properties accordingly.
Yes.
So that now they're staying a lot longer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it definitely is trending that way. We oversee over 20,000 rooms, so we're seeing the data definitely moving that way. And I think that really comes down to the effort you put in on the tenants on the way in, which goes back down to when you're choosing a management company. If that management company understands the importance of creating a level of the people getting on in some way, they'll stay longer. If they don't, and if they're not a specialist and they're treated like a single let, then the cost will be shorter tenancies. And I think what you have to look at is if that agent charges you on the tenant fine side of things, it's actually in their interest to make those shorter tenancies.
Yeah, we don't charge tenant fine fees because we want to show that we're on the side of the landlord, that we want to reduce your turnover. Because also reducing turnover is much easier to manage. We want an easier life.
Yeah.
But it's also the tenant profile as well, isn't it? So it depends on tenant profile because professionals are a good profile. However, they tend to be aspirational people and they move along. So, why would someone live in a still room? Why would they live in that when they can get a one-bedroom flat for a similar price? So they're aspirational people. If you look at, for example, I'm mentioning students, I like students because we know we can measure the cycle. We know when they're coming in, we know when they're leaving. Sometimes we can get them in for the second year, third year as well. So, think about tenant profile. Also, NHS workers, they tend to stay, we find, the longest. As long as your HMO is near a hospital, for example, typically 15 minutes walking distance, they can stay, good 10 months to 18 months as an average. So have a little think about the niche that way too, if you're thinking about the time frame.
And each area is slightly different as well. So we've got quite a lot of stock in Warrington, and there are a lot of properties, a lot of graduate schemes in the area. So you find that people are, come for 6 months, 9 months, and we know they're going to move on because they're just being moved around the country. Like Unilever, for example, massive chemical plant there. So again, it comes down to the area and fundamentally exactly what Cam said there: tenant profile, tenant avatar, know who you're renting to, and design your HMO specifically for them. And then they'll love it and they'll stay.
Yeah,
Great.
Just wanted to say on the sorry.
That's all right. Go on.
I spoke to somebody this week who came to the UK as an architect on 150,000, put up in a single let in London, nice place. But they actually moved into an HMO specifically because they've come to the UK as someone, it's hard to make friends in your 30s. So they just went, what's the top end HMO I can get? I think my mentality on this thing is if you set up a pub with no ambience in a rough place, people will go there to get drunk. If you call it a bistro and put the prices up, people are going there to enjoy themselves. So I think it's the product you create and understanding the market you're going for.
Yeah, great point. Tim?
So now we're talking about top end. So this buzzword of co-living came in a few years ago, which suggests more than just a place for your bed and your exactly. But you're not talking about that here. We're talking about HMO in isolation. But how does co-living has that gone by the wayside again? What's happening?
No, co-living. Well, maybe that's. I don't know. I've got time to go into this, but I'm sure we've all got slightly varying definitions of what we would call co-living.
Yeah.
But for me, co-living is about community living. It's where you build meaningful relationships within a property. The best looking HMO in the world is just that. It's a good looking HMO. Until you have the people in that property that are forming those relationships, that you get that kind of aura around the property, then that is what makes it co-living. And not every property has to be co-living. As you said, an area like Derby, big things for studios. They just like good quality properties. They're doing shift work. Then they're passing the ships of the night. Brilliant. Do studios, nice kitchen, job done. Other areas, London, like massive for it. Manchester's good for it. Portsmouth, we're now doing co-living in Portsmouth, and people are really lapping it up because we get a lot of people moving to the area and they want to make friends. So we're, as I said, the nudge theory that we like to do to encourage people to talk to each other. It's all about breaking the ice, because I know, just imagine somebody's moved into an area, they've moved into their room, they don't see anyone for their first week because they miss each other, and then 6 months can go by, they could still not have spoken to anyone else in that house. So breaking the ice in that first week or two of someone moving in is what we try to do, so that it then
Yeah, I'd say in a nutshell, co-living is stopping recognising as the extra tenants as being a negative to the property and actually considering it as a positive, and it's the lifestyle that you're selling as opposed to just the roof. I'd say that's kind of the nutshell answer.
I would say co-living is a buzzword. Gone are the days when HMOs are seen as a dingy place, and they're not anymore. They can't be anymore. If you're professionalising, they've got to be a good standard. Not necessarily, I wouldn't say always top end, but enough to for the tenants to be happy in, and it needs to be above what everybody else is doing, really, but above average. It needs to be a good say. So co-living is a buzzword. When you say it's a HMO, people have that image, the old image. When you say co-living, it's hip and trendy. It's what you got to remember. Most of this, if I'm being completely honest, are the same strategies regurgitated over and over again. Every few years, they get refreshed and they become the latest flavour of the month. And what you got to do is just keep on track with the latest flavour of the month. Same goes with the interior, same goes with whatever you're doing.
Do you know what we're doing at the moment? We're doing live work units.
Yeah.
I like that.
It basically is co-living.
So there you go.
So my take on that, because I've talked about it a lot on my group, is there is a major difference. And if you go and do some research, co-living is actually bigger HMOs. They can be smaller, but the owner or the corporation that's done it is actually managing the tenants really, really well. And when I say that, it's a shared accommodation, but they're doing cookering classes, or taking them out to pottery classes, or they're taking them on the weekend to a nightclub. So this whole community vibe is going on. There's a 24-hour manager on site, and there's somebody who's actually organizing on a calendar of like 12 months consistent events, right? And the events I've just talked to you about, that is co-living. And an HMO is an HMO, whether it's high-end or co-HMO. It's just an HMO where tenants are getting on and it's really fancy, but there's nobody on site. There's nobody going there every week and saying, hey, on this Saturday, we're going to go out and watch a film, or next Sunday, we're all going to cook together. There's none of that in the HMOs. And that's the difference between co-living and HMOs, in my opinion. Any questions? I think, Neil, I'll come back to you.
One of the things from a single let to HMO is it's a bit unglamorous, but bin management.
Yes.
So how do you guys manage bins?
Oh, that's a big one. Let me start with that, because I'm fresh. I'm so fresh on that right now. Let me tell you what happened. Yeah.
How do you manage your bins?
Let me tell you exactly. I've got loads, right? So this is all fresh, so I've got to jump in. It's literally happening right now. So basically, the council had a set of rules on recycling and rubbish, which we photographed, we did videos, we got paperwork, and we constantly drilling into the psyche of the tenants. And they nail it, right? And this has taken years. And then the council decided to change their recycling laws, right? Yeah, big time. So they change it and they create this one bag for plastic and blah, 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 blah. So now we have to do all of that again. And what does the council do? Sorry. They don't deliver the bags. So you've told us to send all this new literature out to all our tenants, which we've done, and now they're confused as shit because they haven't got the tools to do it, right? So now I'm using all the the website for the council. Where are my bags? Blah blah blah. I press on the button takes me to an error page. I tell the rubbish warden to come out. He doesn't turn up. So now all the rubbish is stacking up, yeah, and I'm having to clear it myself and pay for it. And in the end, I get to the point where, long story short, I've had to format an email and contact every single councillor, every single ward manager for the council, and all the MPs. So there was like 18 people copied into this email, and the email said, listen, I'm paying council tax, I'm paying your stupid licensing fees, I'm educating these tenants, there's landlords and HMO investors out there that don't give a shit about the area, where I'm educating and spending all my time making sure these people clear their rubbish, and you're not delivering me the tools. I don't want to pay my taxes. Right? Hold on, let me finish. I don't want to pay my HMO license. I don't want to do anything.
Get kicked out, Ash.
Yeah, and you know what happens? They all jump. And now I have a meeting with one of their ward guys next week, literally next week, where I'm going to go with a spreadsheet and say which house doesn't have bin. So yes, it can be a nightmare. Sorry, I went off in tangent, but you got single lets.
I've got a talk starting in 5 minutes downstairs.
Okay.
About this. By the way, if you're interested in discounted deals, I'm doing a little talk downstairs for about half an hour. Just saying.
Yeah. We got to go because the next lot are there.
Next lot. Thank you very much.
Get a good letting agent. By the way, if you're interested, I'm doing a HMO training. There's a leaflet there. Pav's got some. You can grab one if you like. If you're interested, come and join me.